Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Jonathan Brown. I'm a professor at Georgetown University, and I am doing a behind-the-scenes review about my recent article on Hudud punishments. It's probably been the first time that Hudud punishments and behind-the-scenes have been used in the same sentence. Although they show up in movies so much, maybe it's not true. But usually the movies aren't good enough to make have behind-the-scenes videos about them. Anyway, what goes on behind the scenes such a project? A lot of reading, a lot of thinking, a lot of typing, a lot of editing, a lot of looking through books, a lot of staying up late at night. But I guess I would say that the things that I maybe wanted to bring up that I didn't really think was appropriate in the piece that really, I don't know, maybe get me thinking about the issue is my father-in-law. He was, years back, he was accused by the government of all sorts of things, and they were all not true, and he wasn't convicted, and he was ultimately left the country, where he lives happily in another country now. But the reason I bring that up is because although he was never convicted, even during the trial, he spent 43 months in solitary confinement. And he said that in a lot of the times, they would, the fire alarm would go off, every 15, 20 minutes. And it was just to drive him crazy. And he said it was just horrible. Did you even remember there was a Law and Order episode? He once showed us there was this Law and Order criminal special victims unit episode about solitary confinement, and he recorded this part. He showed it to us and said, "This is exactly what it was like being in there." And the detective volunteers to go into solitary confinement to see what it's like, because some criminal had been in solitary confinement, had gone crazy, and then killed somebody or something like that. Anyway, he just goes completely bonkers just even before a day is over. And the reason I bring this up is, two reasons. One, when you talk about cruel and unusual punishment, these are very culturally specific concepts. And in the United States, a lot of people think about, solitary confinement is it's not that big a deal. Okay, you're by yourself, and being in jail, it sucks, but it's not, it's not cruel and unusual. But in the research for this article, what I realized is that very few societies would put people into little cells as punishment, and very few societies would do solitary confinement as punishment, because this is extremely cruel to people, and it brutalizes them in lasting ways, much more so than just whipping them or lashing them or beating them. And the second thing is, when my father-in-law was telling me once, when he was in, so you'd get in solitary confinement, you'd get 1 hour, I think, a day or something, and it would be nighttime, but they'd take him up to this this room that would look out. The part of the roof was open, and it would be in kind of a cage, and you could exercise in that cage or something. There was another guy who was out there at the same time, in his cage, in another cage. And that guy was actually the head of one of the two biggest gangs in the country. I don't want to mention which one, but he was, they would talk about things, and that guy was in prison for, I think for life. And my father-in-law asked him one time, he said, if you could who would you rather prefer, having your hand chopped off or being in prison for, decades? He said, I'd rather have my hand chopped off. The reason I bring that up is because it really, you think about what cruel and unusual punishment means, and you think about the cruelty of taking away time from somebody. Time you can never give back. Time is something that, if you're robbed of it, you've got nothing else. And the cruelty of putting people in cages for years and years and years and taking them away from their families, away from any ability to be productive, isolating them even further, maybe within that prison. strikes me as very cruel. And so I probably one of the things I wanted to get across in this article is to really challenge how sort of assumptions about what cruel and unusual punishment means. And that's something that's actually argued by a lot of scholars in this country, scholars of law, scholars of ethics, with nothing to do with Islam, but just looking at to what extent some of the very poor assumptions we've made in this country about what constitutes cruel and unusual punishment have to be revisited. So that's something that I thought a lot about when I was writing this article, and hopefully you'll find it interesting and useful. Thanks.